button right at 9 a.m. or whatever, and all of a sudden the numbers were just starting to fly, and we were at like 30,000 within like the first 10 minutes or something, and I was just like, Zoey, can you refresh on your page? Like, is it glitching out? Like, what is going on right now? I was like, we couldn't believe it.
What's up, everyone? Mark here, and in this episode of Masters of Crowdfunding, we have Casey Mates. He is one of the co-founders of SweaterBear Games, and his other co-founder is actually his wife, Zoey, which I think is awesome, and together they launched Bear Mountain Camping Adventure, which was a huge hit on Kickstarter. This was their very first launch. It did nearly $800,000, and so in this episode, Casey tells all. He talks about how they started the game, the pre-launch strategy, the biggest mistakes that they made, et cetera, et cetera. So I had a lot of fun recording this one. I think you will really enjoy it too. All right, hope you enjoy. All right, we are live. Well, welcome, Casey. Excited to have you here.
Hello. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to just dive on into it and start off with the origin story. Can you tell us, how did you come up with this idea of Bear Mountain Camping Adventure?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the original idea for Bear Mountain Camping Adventure came about 2 years ago. My wife and I love playing board games, and so we were looking for a board game that you could specifically play like in a camper, like camping around to different sites. And so we looked really hard to try to find one like that, and we couldn't find one. And so we were like, what the heck, let's just throw one together and, just for fun, and we could play it with our family or whatever and see what happens. And so after spending a whole bunch of time and effort on it, 2 years later, we were like, wow, this game is actually kind of fun, and it would be awesome if we could get more people to play it. And so that's when we thought, like, hey, what about Kickstarter? Like, wouldn't that be cool if we could get a Kickstarter campaign going and see what could happen with that? And then everything just was like a whirlwind for the next 3 months, and while getting everything ready to go for Kickstarter, and then it turned out to work out, and it's just been a crazy ride since then.
Well, we'll get into all the crazy stuff, the crazy ride, because I know you had a big success on Kickstarter. So you worked on this game for 2 years, is what you said?
Yeah. So we, it took a long time. My wife and I are wedding photographer and videographers, and so it was a lot of just working on it during the downtime. And so, it started off just by making a few of the cards and kind of getting the idea for the art style that we wanted for the whole game. And then I ended up designing the entire game, and then we tested it once after getting a super early prototype. And then I literally scrapped the entire game and started from scratch again, basically just with the mechanics, because it wasn't working. It wasn't a lot of fun to play. And so we scrapped it, started over, and then with all the same kind of components and art, and then just built it back up to make sure it was good before we, wanted to even think about releasing it or anything like that.
All right. Well, so I'm so curious, how do you create a game? Is this something that you had experience in doing prior to, creating your own game? Or did you learn from somewhere? How did you go about this process of, I guess, creating the game, quite simply?
Definitely. Yeah. It's, I did do a couple of games beforehand, and by did, I just mean I think it started out, the first thing we did as far as trying to build a game was we copied another game. And so we found a game that we really liked, and then we were and it's a game with an IP, like a Harry Potter game. And so we were let's try to make this into a Game of Thrones game. And so we took everything about that game, and we were just going to play it for ourselves, obviously. And then we completely copied it, made all the components, completely separate for this own game, standalone game, and then, changed just a couple of the mechanics to things that we liked, and so that were changed from the original. And I think that was a good way to kind of get into it as far as like, how do you build a board game? How do you get the components to look good? And how do you, like, if you wanted to tweak some mechanics, how can you do that to where you see what you like and don't like? And I think that was a really good introduction to how to like get started with that. And then from there, we did like, okay, that was fun. Let's build one from scratch where we just start from the bottom and, you know, make everything ourselves as far as the art and everything goes. And so I think that was a good way to get into it. And then I think we made like, I want to say 3 games that were like kind of legit just for us to play before I got into making this one for the Kickstarter.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I really like the advice of copying first to learn. As it's interesting. Yeah, I was actually just having a really similar discussion, not about board games, but just about the concept of like when you're starting brand new in something, in an area. I was talking to my business partner about this, Mike. You know, it's very advisable to copy. And I think sometimes like our egos get in the way of, oh man, if I copy it, I'm doing something wrong. Like I should be coming up with something like completely innovative. But the process actually should go, you know, you start from scratch, you copy to like learn, and then you innovate or create something new from there, which sounds like is essentially the process that you took.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. That has been our philosophy forever, is just, you know, if something works really well, do as much as you can to, you know, reflect that and then, you know, kind of make it your own from there.
So you created this game with Zoey, your wife, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. How did you like split your roles when it came to building the game? Was it pretty split, or did you all work on, you know, kind of everything together and collaboratively?
Definitely. So I would say a lot of it started off, I was kind of on my own adventure for a minute with getting the components together. And basically I worked on all of the components myself, and then it got a lot more collaborative once we started testing it out. And so that's where my wife Zoey and then my brother and his wife, we all worked together to make sure the mechanics worked well together. And then the art, they had a lot of opinions on the art style and things not looking cohesive. And so they helped out a lot with just giving feedback on that kind of stuff. And then I would say the major area where we kind of had to get a lot more collaborative is when we started going down the Kickstarter path. That is where I would say, like, I was like, if we're going to get this thing out this year with the other stuff that we're doing in our lives, I'm going to need a lot of help. And so, and I'm not the kind of person to ask for a lot of help, to be honest. And so that was kind of nice for me to open up and be like, hey, I need you to help me with the graphics on Kickstarter. So, and that's where it kind of turned into a project for both of us. We went out and shot a bunch of really nice pictures for the game and just kind of settings and stuff like that. And then she helped a ton. She did most of, if you look at our Kickstarter page, she did most of the graphics on there. And a lot of that was just from working on Canva. But it was a lot to put together. And so she helped out a ton during that portion of it, while I could focus on other things like getting quotes for manufacturing and kind of a lot of meetings for fulfillment. So we had numbers to put on the Kickstarter and things like that.
Nice. She definitely crushed it on the graphics.
Yes,
there's no doubt. No doubt about that. How much did you actually spend, let's say, getting the initial concept created? So this is like, I guess, because you got to a point where you had like a prototype of the game that like you were using to play and everything. I guess the question is, what I'm trying to get at is, how much did you spend before you got to the point where you're like, okay, now we're going to go forward with this Kickstarter launch?
Definitely. Yeah. So prototyping is definitely expensive for board gaming. I imagine it's expensive for anything, like any kind of project you'd want to try to launch. But specifically for us, I'm trying to think, the first couple iterations probably cost like $200 to $300 per game. And so I would say we probably spent maybe $1,000 before we were like, and that's just on prototype components being ordered before we were like, okay, we need to, we've already sunk a little bit of money into this. Let's go ahead and try to do something a little bigger with this one. So honestly, not a ton, I would say, but obviously in the grand scheme of things, but it was enough to where we were like, we've spent more money on this one than any games in the past. Let's try to do something.
Nice. And how did you actually get the prototype created?
Yeah, we used a company. So we're in the Midwest, and so there's a company in Wisconsin called the Game Crafter, and they, what I'll say is that their components aren't the same as where you'd go to like Target or anywhere and actually buy a game where it's like pretty nice components. However, what I will say is they are very affordable when it comes to prototyping, and they're very quick. So that was the two qualifications that I was looking for when we were working on prototyping, because I was able to order parts or the whole game and be able to get it within like 2 weeks, actually a lot sooner if you like rush order it, which is pretty incredible when it comes to board game prototyping. And so yeah, I would highly recommend them for anybody who's looking to just, get a copy of an early game that they can work with. And also we used them we ordered all the prototypes from them that we sent out later before the Kickstarter to all of the like influencers who were going to help us out and get feedback from for the Kickstarter.
And so you used them to create the prototype that was even in the photos that were on the campaign and used in the ads. Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be using someone different to actually manufacture the game.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to go. We have a couple of quotes right now. We'd love to work with Panda Manufacturing because they're the best of the best, and their communication has been amazing. So, yeah, we're working with some numbers right now, but we're definitely leaning towards Panda. They've been amazing working with us throughout the Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, they're awesome. Really, really awesome people over there. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead to the actual launch because you had a big one. In the very first day you did, I think it was 194,000. And I just want to go back to that moment. Like, what was that like? Like, what was going through your head? Was it below your expectations? What was it?
So it's funny because obviously we were super nervous the morning of, and so we clicked the button right at 9 a.m. or whatever, and all of a sudden the numbers were just starting to fly, and we were at like 30,000 within like the first 10 minutes or something, and I was just like, Zoey, can you refresh on your page? Like, is it glitching out? Like, what is going on right now? I was like, we couldn't believe it, and then our minds were blown, and so as the day went on, we were just like, wow, this thing is actually like going to work out. And it was far beyond anything we could have possibly imagined. Like I think ended the day because me and Zoey and then my brother and his wife were all like making bets the day before, like what it'll hit by the end of the campaign. And so, I was saying maybe 150 by the end of the campaign. And so when it blew past that on the first day, I was just like, wow, this is insane.
pretty sweet.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Do you remember how much you spent in during the pre-launch?
Yes. And so we so not including, I guess if we're counting prototyping and everything, because we ordered like I said, we ordered about 10 games before we launched to send out to people for feedback and to get some, quotes for the campaign. We probably spent about $5 to $10 grand on those just because we had to rush order them. It was a timing thing. And then as far as marketing goes, all of our social media marketing before the campaign, we spent $12,500 on. And I was actually looking to spend just a little bit more than that, but with timing and everything, I was like, we should be okay. We're right around where we need to be. So I was very happy with, what we spent on that pre-marketing.
Yeah. So it'd actually be great if you could tell the audience, what that means, spending 12 grand on the pre-launch. Like, what did that go to? What did it get you? And what was the
Absolutely.
result? Which is,
100%.
I think everyone knows is the big day one. But anyways, yeah, if you can walk through that, I think that would be awesome.
Absolutely. So, and this is where I have to give Launch Boom huge shout out here. So to give you a little background on me too, marketing isn't something that's super new to me. I'm the kind of guy who went and bought 1,000 online courses for marketing, in the past 10 years. And I did some local marketing for like local companies, like as a consultant and stuff. So I thought I knew everything that there was to know about marketing before getting into Kickstarter. And I was like, and so when I first found out about Launch Boom, I was doing some sleuthing on some other campaigns, and I was like, oh, these guys are, on some of these big campaigns. I better go check them out. And I looked at them and I was like, I've done so many courses online and coaching and blah, blah, blah. I probably know everything here. And then we were talking to a guy who's looking to do video for us for the campaign, and he referred us as well. And I was like, all right, I got to check this out. And so the stuff that Launch Boom is teaching over there as far as getting your campaign ready, they use what's called a reservation funnel. Obviously, you know this, but they use what's called a reservation funnel, and where you're gaining emails, and then some of those emails are reserving your product, so our game beforehand. And so as far as numbers go, we spent $12,500 on social media ads collecting these emails, and we had 5,500 emails total collected right before we launched. And out of those 5,500, 1,600 were what we call VIPs, which were the people who reserved the game for $1 before we launched. And so those guys, and this is what Launch Boom, teaches over there, is how to cultivate that audience. And their resources and coaching and the community they built over there is just incredible. And that's honestly what helped us to get this audience cultivated and ready to go for our launch. And so those 1,600 people, I couldn't believe how much they came through for us on that day one, which is what you're going for when you launch. Because if you can get a big day one, then you're like, the organic growth you get from that is insane. I think we probably made 40% of everything we made on Kickstarter just from that organic growth, and that comes from the pre-marketing and getting ready for that big day one.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I was looking at your stats. I do think it was 40% at least was attributable to Kickstarter. That's what you're talking about, the organic.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Just so for everyone listening, it can be pretty wild how much traffic you can get from Kickstarter itself, especially if you are a popular project on the platform, because there are just a lot of people that are looking for cool products. And yeah, 40% is quite high, but I would say that when it comes to the tabletop game space, that definitely is more normal than, let's say, like a consumer tech product, as an example, might be more closer to like 20 or 25%, something like that. But yeah, that's awesome to see those stats. You also did, you worked with, I believe, BackerKit, right, for live advertising. And yeah, how did that go? It looks like it went well.
Yeah, that was amazing. We were going back and forth between a couple of companies to start with. And so we were actually kind of nervous because this was our first campaign. And so we didn't really know what the right move was with this. And so, we were talking with, a couple other people that we knew that had great success on Kickstarter before. And so, they were saying, you can't go wrong with a couple of these companies. Just, try one and see what happens. And so we were like, let's try BackerKit this time. And maybe if it doesn't work out, we'll do something else on the next one. But their communication is amazing. And I think they really helped us out on getting some of that success on day one as well, because they pumped a lot of money into the ads on the first day. It went down after that a little bit as we were pulling back for, as you continue throughout the campaign, it decays a little bit. But they came through for us on that day one as well with pumping a lot into the ads, and we were getting about $9 or, $9 for every dollar we spent on ads on that first day. And then after that, it went down to, which was amazing. And then I think after that, it went down to about $4 for every dollar we spent after that, which was still really good. We were happy. We were looking for anything above, $3. And so, they worked out really well for us.
That's awesome. It's awesome to hear. Yeah, I think using the pre-launch email list building strategy and having that, contribute a lot to day one, plus having ads go live on that first day can just be almost like compounds on stuff.
Oh yeah, that compound.
It's a pretty deadly combo, which is awesome to see. So what other, marketing strategies or tactics did you use? You mentioned influencers earlier in this podcast. I'm curious, actually, I'd love to specifically know about what was your influencer marketing strategy? How did that work out? And then we can follow up from there to see if there were other marketing tactics you used.
Definitely. Yeah. So for the influencer one, we initially just were like, hey, we just need some like quotes from people. So let's send some stuff out. So we just started reaching out to people that we had seen on other tabletop game Kickstarters that had done well. And so we were like, well, they did reviews for this game, so maybe they would like our game. So we just started DMing people on Instagram to see if they would be open to playing our game and giving us feedback. And so we reached out to, I think, about like 15 people, and about half of them got back to us. And so then we reached out to a couple more just to get up to that around 10 level. And then we ordered the games, sent them out. But that's kind of how we found them, was just through other Kickstarters.
So you're ordering individual games for each of these different influencers.
And what's really annoying is we ordered all these games and then sent them out, and then we play tested it again ourselves, and with a little bit of feedback from some of the influencers that we had already sent it out to, and we changed a bunch of stuff on the game. And so what was really annoying is we had to like send an email out to everyone before, like just before the campaign started. It was like, hey, this huge part of the game is actually going to be changed. Can you guys like replay it just so that, just to test it out? So anyway, that's just all to say, like, test it as much as you can before you send it out, because that was a mistake that we'll iron out better for next time. But yeah, we sent them all an individual game. Yep.
And so each of those games cost like $200. Is that what you were saying before?
Yep. And then it was even a little bit more too for the rush shipping that we did for. So each game ended up being like $300 or $400.
Guys, so you spent about like $3,000 to $4,000 on sending it out?
Yeah, it was about $5,000 total but I guess, because we ordered a couple more, I guess. But yeah, just for us.
No, which I think can be, well, do you have any stats in terms of like direct revenue generated from some of the content they created?
It's hard to know. Because we couldn't give them like referral links specifically, because a lot of people were just like, they were just pointing them, I think, to our campaign. But I would say it was definitely worth it, because we got a lot of comments and stuff being asking like, hey, are there any reviewers or whatever? And so beyond just the direct revenue that we might have gotten from them, I think it was definitely really important just to get those reviews from them, so that we could show that other people have played this.
Right. It's also a really good conversion tool, because it adds that credibility and social proof, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I like that tactic a lot. I think that's really cool. I know it's not necessarily a new tactic that you came up with. Like you said, a lot of people use it, but I do think that it should be in the the toolkit, so to speak, for board game creators. Yeah, I like that a lot. Was there anything that you did that didn't work very well when it came to marketing your campaign?
Honestly, we were, I don't want to say lucky, but like we were pretty successful when it came to everything we did pre-campaign. And I think a lot of that can be contributed to our audiences. So like the audience we were going after was people who like camping and then board gamers. And I think there's a big overlap there between the two. And so a lot of the targeting we did worked out really well, right? Kind of from the start. I'm trying to think of anything that didn't really work out. We had some stuff that didn't work out great during the campaign, but trying to think.
Do you mind sharing that, or do you not want to get into that?
No, yeah, I can share it. So a couple things I would say that we would do differently during the campaign for the next one were, first of all, it would be the Q&As. We were obviously with a big day, it's great, and we couldn't have been any more grateful, but it did come with, hundreds of comments. And so I think getting that Q&A together beforehand is something we kind of overlooked. And I know, and reading afterwards, I think it's smart. I was reading to get together to look at other campaigns and get a bunch of questions that people are going to ask together and put it in the Q&A section beforehand, because we were swamped that first day. Well, the first week, actually, just with catching up, because it was just Zoey and I answering every question on there. And we wanted to give everybody a good answer. And so that took away a lot of time where we couldn't focus more on different parts of the campaign that I think we needed to focus on. So that was one thing I would say. Another one was, and honestly, this was kind of a big one, and we knew this was going to be controversial when we were doing it. And it was halfway through the campaign, and we were like, we had 3 main bundles, 3 main packages: the retail version, one that came with 1 expansion, and then one that we called the all-in package, which came with the retail game, 2 expansions, and then 1 extra bonus game. And so halfway through the campaign, we were like, we were getting a lot of questions on hey, are there going to be metal coins added on the pledge manager afterwards? Is there going to be a neoprene playmat added on? And what's the price going to be for these add-ons when they're in the pledge manager afterwards? And then on top of that, we were also getting questions like, man, is there anything I can do to get us closer to these next stretch goals, and blah, 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 which was amazing. We had a lot of really generous, really awesome backers who were trying to get us, pumped up for more stretch goals. And so about halfway through the campaign, we were like, what would happen if we just released all of the add-ons that we're going to release in the pledge manager afterwards, just right now, halfway through the campaign? And so we were like, this could backfire. And so what we did, we did release them, and we gave an update and was like, hey, here's all the add-ons that are going to be available in the pledge manager. You can actually add them on now if you'd like. And so it was about 6 things that we added halfway through the campaign. And we were like, this might be an amazing marketing move, as far as this, because you kind of get into a slump halfway through the campaign, and so we were like, this could really pump it up halfway through. Maybe this is a hack that nobody knows about. But I think it was the opposite, because we were doing about $10,000 to $15,000 a day up until that point. After that day, after we sent out that update and added all of those add-ons, it went down a lot from there to a couple thousand a day until we hit that last week stretch. And I was reading an article that was like, it's not a coincidence if you change something and then you all of a sudden kind of get a drop off. And the biggest complaints we were getting were that the all-in package is no longer an all-in package. And I totally get it. What people were saying with that. They kind of saw it as a little bit of a cash grab. And while, of course, that wasn't our intention at all, I totally see their point of view on that. And so if we were to do it differently next time, we probably wouldn't add that stuff halfway through the campaign, and we probably wouldn't use the wording of all in unless you're saying gameplay all in or something like that. So those were a couple things that
Why would it be thought that it was a cash grab? That's the part I'm not quite understanding.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing about it was they were thinking that we were just trying to get more money halfway through the campaign by adding on all this extra stuff. And I don't know if everybody knew that this was stuff that was going to be available later on anyway, even though we tried to make that transparent. And so they were like, oh, so there's this all-in package, but now I have to spend an extra $60 to add all this extra stuff on that's not included in the all-in. And so
I got it. So now it became like a messaging problem where using the name all in. Yeah, okay, that does make sense.
yes, and you can't.
Yeah, even if that wasn't the intention.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a good lesson for everyone too. Yeah, once you have the rewards backed.
Yes, 100%. Because honestly, we would have taken away those add-ons again after that day if we could have. But after people, back it, after one person backs it, you can't change it. And so it was just a decision we wanted to make, and just to see what would happen. And we were like, if this works out, great. If it doesn't, we'll know for next time.
Well, so the campaign by this point, I think it's very clear, very successful. I'm curious, like, are you and Zoey still doing your wedding photography business?
We are phasing it out this year, and so we have weddings that were already booked that we're going to obviously do for the rest of this year, and then I think we're gonna phase it out going forward because we definitely want to kind of lean into this and see where we can go with this. We're kind of dedicating the rest of this year to finishing up weddings and fulfilling this game, and then after that we're going to be really looking forward to moving on to the next game. We have a lot of fun ideas that we can't wait to try out.
Really? That's awesome. So essentially going all in on on SweaterBear Games, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is the name. That's awesome. Well, so what do you think is going to be next, if anything, that you can share with us for 2024?
So I would love to do more in the camping realm, as far as, I don't know if we want to do a direct sequel to the game or if we want to do something kind of different but keep it camping related, because that's one thing we saw just in the space, that there was wasn't a lot of stuff in the camping realm as far as board games, and there's a lot of demand for it apparently. So we would love to keep working on that, but we have some other ideas. To not get into it too much, we would love to get into some more IP stuff, and so we are talking to and reaching out to some IPs to see if we can work together and get some games out there that aren't covered yet for those IPs. So that's something we're really looking forward to and excited for the next year.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm very stoked to see what you two do going into 2024. I mean, you've already accomplished a lot. I think for a lot of people listening, it probably is their dream to launch something like this and then be able to go all in on it. So really awesome to see what you've already accomplished, but even more excited to see what happens in 2024. As a last question, speaking to the, let's say, like the creators or to-be creators that have this game idea, and they might just feel a little bit stuck on like what to do next. Could you maybe just like give them some advice of how to go from this like game concept they have to just starting to get the ball rolling to eventually launch their own Kickstarter?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say if it is your dream and you're really passionate about getting a game going, we've gotten a lot of messages just in the past few months, obviously with this exact same question. And so what I would say is, don't be afraid to, if you're really passionate about it, invest a little bit more into it and kind of go for it, because I think a really underrated skill set when you're trying to launch something like this and get something going like this is resourcefulness. And so studying campaigns that have done well is going to be one of the biggest things you can do, is look at other Kickstarter campaigns that are kind of like the game or the project that you're working on, and see how much of that you can kind of emulate on your own. And then don't be afraid to reach out to people as well, because I think you'll find that a lot of people will respond and give you the time of day just because you reached out to them. And so don't be afraid to reach out to people. And on that same note, getting in touch with the right people is going to be huge too. So again, got to give a shout out here. Reaching out to Launch Boom is going to be a big thing. If you can swing it, because they will point you in the right direction. They'll give you the resources you need, and their community is a huge resource on its own, and just going for it. Don't be afraid to risk a little bit, and because the worst thing that will happen is you'll learn a lot, and that's going to be huge moving forward for you if you're trying for more stuff in the future.
Love it. Appreciate all the advice. I think that was very, very well said. And of course, thank you so much for sharing the whole story. Again, just like so happy to see where you guys came from. It's a long journey, a few years to make this thing happen, but it looks like very, very much well worth it, and excited for what happens in 2024 for you both. So thanks, Casey, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it as well.
Yep.
All right, we'll see ya. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.